Man, every single day these OTAs are giving Browns fans something new to talk about. One minute you're feeling hyped about the offense finally looking explosive again. The next minute, there's injury scares, quarterback drama, and young guys making plays all over the field. It honestly feels like this team is building toward one of the most unpredictable seasons we've had in a long time. And the crazy part? We're still only in OTAs. You can already feel the energy around this roster starting to shift, and Browns fans are paying attention to every single rep right now. If you're fired up for Browns football, smash that like button right now and drop "Here we go, Brownies" down in the comments so I know the real fans are locked in. Mike Hall Jr. gave Browns fans a real scare during OTA practice after suffering an awkward injury during walkthroughs. The young defensive tackle reportedly bent his leg badly and had to be helped off the field while unable to put weight on his right leg. What makes this even more frustrating is the timing. We are talking about voluntary OTA sessions, no pads, no real contact, and yet one of Cleveland's most important young defenders suddenly goes down. The good news is that later reports suggested Hall was at least able to walk inside the fieldhouse with help from trainers, which immediately lowered the panic level around the building. Still, Browns fans know this story all too well. Mike Hall Jr. has flashed real talent, explosive quickness, and the ability to become a disruptive interior defender. But durability questions continue following him. There was serious belief inside the fan base that this season could become his breakout campaign. Instead, the first major OTA headline involving him is another injury concern. At the same time, the quarterback situation keeps getting more fascinating every single practice. One of the biggest developments from OTAs was seeing Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel working with the first-team group during walkthroughs, while Deshaun Watson and Taylon Green spent portions with the second unit. That immediately raised eyebrows because it shows the Browns are at least experimenting heavily with combinations right now. But once team drills began, Watson was right back leading the starting offense again, and according to multiple reports, he had his best OTA showing yet. Watson reportedly threw 6 touchdowns compared to 1 interception during practice, and observers noted the ball was coming out with far more velocity than last season. Some even claimed his arm strength currently looks better than it did in 2024. Now, Browns fans have every reason to be skeptical. We heard similar off-season optimism last year before everything completely collapsed once the regular season started. Watson dominating practices without pass rush pressure is nothing new. OTAs have often been the environment where he looks comfortable, mobile, and confident. The real question is whether any of this survives once live defenses start hitting him in meaningful football games. Still, there were a few things during practice that absolutely caught attention. Todd Monken apparently dialed up designed quarterback runs for Watson, including RPO concepts similar to what he previously used with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. That matters because Watson is coming off major Achilles injuries, and Cleveland clearly would not be testing those movement concepts unless they believed his mobility was returning. If Watson can truly move again, it completely changes what this offense could look like in 2026. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders continues building chemistry with several young weapons, especially Gage Larvadain. Reports from practice suggest those two connected multiple times again, continuing a trend that has quietly developed throughout workouts. Sanders may still be fighting for long-term positioning in this quarterback room, but his timing and rhythm with younger receivers are becoming noticeable. One issue the Browns absolutely cannot ignore, though, is the number of dropped passes happening during OTAs. Multiple interceptions from different quarterbacks reportedly came directly off tipped or dropped balls by receivers. Watson, Sanders, and Gabriel all had turnovers tied to mistakes from pass catchers. Todd Monken reportedly called those errors embarrassing, especially considering There is no live pass rush during these sessions. That concern becomes even more important because Cleveland's offense is clearly trying to become more explosive vertically. Deep balls were flying all over the field during this practice, and several receivers made huge plays. Isaiah Bond may have delivered the catch of the day with a contested deep touchdown grab from Watson, despite tight coverage and a defender's arm directly between his hands. The athleticism and confidence Bond displayed on that play immediately turned heads. There is real momentum building around Bond right now. With Cleveland adding more talent to the receiver room, some expected him to fade into the background, but the exact opposite may be happening. Bond reportedly finished last season strongly after developing chemistry with Shader Sanders, and now he looks even more dangerous entering this year's offense. Some inside Browns circles are beginning to wonder if he could rise far beyond just being the WR2 option. Another extremely encouraging development came from Casey Concepcion. One of the biggest criticisms surrounding him entering camp involved concentration drops, but during this OTA session, he made an impressive leaping touchdown catch in the red zone, showing exactly the kind of contested ball ability that made him dangerous in college football. Cleveland already knows what he can do after the catch. If the consistency catching the football improves, this offense suddenly gains another dangerous weapon. Even with some inconsistency, there is definitely a feeling that Todd Monken's system is bringing more aggression and creativity to the Browns' passing attack. The offense is pushing the ball vertically, quarterbacks are taking more chances, and players seem energized by the structure being installed right now. The challenge, of course, is translating all of this into real production once the games start counting. So after hearing everything coming out of Browns OTAs today, what stands out to you the most? The Mike Hall Jr. injury concern, Watson suddenly looking explosive again, or the growing buzz around young playmakers like Isaiah Bond and Casey Concepcion? Grant Delpit showing up around the team facility was another underrated positive from Browns OTAs, even though he did not fully participate in practice. Just seeing Delpit in the building matters because Cleveland's secondary absolutely needs leadership and physicality heading into this season. Browns fans already know the type of tone-setter Delpit can be when healthy. He plays with aggression, confidence, and the kind of edge this defense feeds off emotionally. At the same time, it is worth noting that several key names were either limited or unavailable during these sessions. Mason Graham, Dylan Sampson, Luke Weipler, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, Dom Jones, and others were present without practicing fully, leaving the Browns thinner than expected at certain positions. That situation became especially noticeable along the defensive line, where the Browns were forced to give undrafted players larger opportunities with the first unit, because of the lack of healthy bodies available. One of those names suddenly drawing attention is undrafted defensive tackle Cord Snyder out of Vanderbilt. Because the Browns were so limited at defensive tackle during practice, Snyder reportedly received snaps with the first-team defense. That may sound insignificant in May, but Browns fans know these are exactly the moments where undrafted players start carving out roster opportunities. Cleveland also reportedly invested meaningful guaranteed money into Snyder compared to a typical UDFA, which tells you the organization clearly sees potential there. And honestly, that may become one of the hidden themes of this entire offseason. Cleveland suddenly has young players everywhere fighting for roster spots, rotational snaps, and long-term roles. The quarterback battle naturally dominates headlines, but the real intrigue may end up coming from how many younger players force their way into meaningful opportunities before Week 1 even arrives. The offense especially feels different compared to what Browns fans watched last season. Reports from practice repeatedly mentioned deep balls, aggressive throws, explosive concepts, and more overall energy in the passing game. Last year's offense often looked stuck, predictable, and painfully conservative. During these OTA sessions, however, there seems to be a clear emphasis on stretching the field vertically and allowing playmakers opportunities to attack defenses downfield. That is exactly why Isaiah Bond's emergence matters so much right now. Cleveland desperately needs another receiver capable of creating explosive plays consistently, and Bond is starting to look like someone prepared to take that leap. The catch he made during practice was not just athletic. It was the type of play that builds trust quickly with quarterbacks and coaches. Winning contested balls, finishing through contact, and attacking deep throws aggressively are traits that separate rotational receivers from legitimate starters. And if Casey Concepcion starts eliminating drops while maintaining his playmaking ability after the catch, suddenly the Browns' offense has far more versatility than people expected entering the offseason. There is a reason the coaching staff continues emphasizing concentration and consistency with him. The physical talent has never really been the concern. If those issues improve, defenders are going to have nightmares trying to tackle him in space. But everything still circles back to one massive question hanging over this franchise. Can Deshaun Watson actually return to being a high-level quarterback again? That question is unavoidable, no matter how exciting OTA highlights may look. 6 touchdowns in practice sound great. Improved arm strength sounds great. Mobility returning sounds great. Browns fans have heard optimistic off-season narratives before. The frustration comes from the fact that the regular season version of Watson has looked completely disconnected from the player Cleveland thought it traded for. What makes this year different, though, is that there finally appears to be legitimate competition and urgency around the quarterback room. Shedeur Sanders is not arriving quietly. Dillon Gabriel is clearly still involved in the battle. Even the distribution of walkthrough reps shows the Browns are at least willing to experiment and evaluate multiple directions before fully committing. That pressure may actually help Watson. For the first time in a long time, there is a sense that Cleveland's quarterback situation is fluid rather than predetermined. If Watson succeeds, it will have to be earned through performance, consistency, and proving he can still elevate an offense when real football starts. And maybe that competitive environment is exactly what this team needs. Because despite the injuries, the dropped passes, and the lingering skepticism, there is one thing becoming very obvious at Browns OTAs right now. This roster has speed, young talent, and far more explosiveness than people outside Cleveland realize. The energy around the offense feels renewed. Young receivers are making plays. Coaches are opening up the playbook. Quarterbacks are attacking vertically. And if even part of this translates into the regular season, the Browns could become one of the more unpredictable teams in the AFC. The challenge now is surviving camp healthy, cleaning up the mistakes, and turning off-season flashes into meaningful production when the lights come on. Browns fans are going to be watching every single practice closely from here because this team suddenly feels like it is entering one of the most important training camps in recent franchise history. There are roster battles everywhere, questions at quarterback, and young players trying to force their way into major roles before September arrives. And if today's OTA session proved anything, it is that the Browns are not lacking drama, storylines, or intrigue heading into this season. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and click the video on your screen right now, because all the latest Browns news, roster battles, OTA updates, and breaking developments are going to be right here first.